Welcome back to our C Sharp beginner tutorial. In today's lesson, we're going to look at dynamic arrays or lists. So let me just bring up the notepad. Um, so we'll be looking at dynamic arrays or lists. So we've already seen the normal arrays. We've seen how to initialize, well, how first to declare an array and how to initialize an array. If you haven't done that, look into I can't remember the lesson number, but look in one of the previous lessons. There's a lesson where we looked at arrays. So today we're going to look at a little bit something a little bit advanced. So it's not that advanced. It's just that it's the same arrays. Okay, it's the same concept, but if you remember in the normal arrays that we looked at, you had to declare the number, like the size of the array at the beginning. When you're going to declare the array, you declare the size of the array. Okay, and if you declare an array to have, say, six cells, that's six different blocks where you can store items, you cannot increase, or you cannot go beyond that six items. Okay, so you're limited to that six until unless you decide to create another array entirely. Okay, so that's what dynamic arrays try to solve. Okay, that's the problem dynamic arrays or lists try to solve. They kind of give you, at the beginning you create an array. Okay, and when you create it, you do not even specify the size of the array. You just create the array, and at the beginning the array is going to have a size of 0, since there's nothing inside. But by the time you start adding, okay, you are allowed to keep adding items into the array. Okay, so that's why it is dynamic. The size of the array grows as you increase the number of items inside the array. Okay, well, let's just head to Visual Studio and we'll see how to create dynamic arrays and how to use them. Okay, I'll just go ahead for that. Maybe we should create a new solution. So I'm going to create a new project. I'll choose console app and choose next, and then we're going to call it dynamic arrays um, basics, maybe just dynamic arrays. Okay, and I'm going to drop it inside the folder where we usually keep our projects. So here I'll go to new folder and I'll just create a new folder for it, dynamic arrays, and I select that folder and I choose create. So that will create the solution and the project for me. Okay, so here we have our project, and this is our program class. So because dynamic arrays are, they are actually, okay, let's start with lists. Okay, there are different types of arrays, as you find out, dynamic arrays, as you later find out, but the one we're going to treat today is list. So list is written this way, list. And the way you use it is that because it is a generic um, it's a generic is a generic class. Okay, list is a generic class. What it means is that you can actually use it with several different data types. Okay, so I'll explain that. But first, in order to have that list available to us, you can see if I type in list, you can see it's written in red line saying it does not exist. That is because it exists in the namespace system.generic.collections. Okay, and so we have to let the compiler know that we're using system.generic system.collections.generic, not the other way around. So system.collections.generic, and then we use our semicolon. So now if I go ahead and type my list, you can see it's Visual Studio recognizes it as a class. Okay, so it's already created. Okay, it already comes with I think it comes with .NET. Okay, so because we're using the .NET framework, we already have access to this class. Okay, it's already created within .NET. We don't have to create the class by ourselves. Okay, so like I said, the list class just allows you to create a dynamic array. Okay, it allows you to create a dynamic array without much headache. Okay, so let's see how we can do that. First, we have to type in suppose we want to create the object. First, we have to create an object of this data type. But because it is a generic class, this we have to use these angle brackets. So notice what I did. I used a less than sign and a greater than sign. Those are known as the angle brackets. Okay, and usually for generic classes, when you type in these angle brackets, they expect you to provide a data type in between the angle brackets. The data type you provide in between the angle brackets refer to the type. Okay, they refer to the type of objects that you wish to store inside the dynamic array. Okay, I don't know if this is making sense. Okay, let's just take a review. Let's open Notepad and look back at the original array when we created array. So let me open Notepad. Okay, so you remember when we learned how to create arrays, the normal arrays, you first have to specify the data type, isn't it? Like int, for example, or string, right? So suppose I want to create an array that can store like a bunch of strings, say 5 strings. I'm going to type string and then use the square brackets. Okay, this is the data type I'm going to use, and then I'm going to write the name of the variable that will hold the array. So I'm going to call it say string array, or let's just call it array1, for example. Okay, and then I'm going to say equals new string again with these square brackets, and then in between the square brackets I'm going to specify the size of the array. Okay, so suppose we're going to store 10 string items. I'm going to put 10 in there and then end with a semicolon. I hope you remember this is the way you initialize an array, right? You declare and you initialize. This is the declaration and this is the initialization. So in the initialization, you specify the number of boxes you can have. So you can see in this declaration and initialization of this normal array, first you had to specify the data type, right? String, meaning you can only store strings inside this array. And then you also had to specify the size of the array. Okay, so that's two things you needed to do. Well, for dynamic arrays, all you need to specify is the data type. You do not need to specify the size. Okay, so how do you specify the data type? And that's what I'm about to show you now. Okay, you specify the data type in between these angle brackets. Okay, so that's the difference between the in declaration, when declaring the list or the dynamic list, which is a dynamic array, and the normal array. In the normal array, remember you use the square brackets, whereas here we're using the angle brackets. Okay, and the way you initialize them, you declare and initialize them is different. This is how you declare and initialize a normal array. For a dynamic array, first you specify, after writing the list data type, put the angle brackets in here. Suppose we want the same type of array here. We want an array that can store string. We're going to put the string inside here. Okay, so notice how we write it, list string. Okay, and then next you give a space and then the name of the array. So I'm going to do the same thing we did here. I'm going to give it the same name, array1. So I'm going to call it array1. Okay, and then you put your semicolon. Now this is your declaration. Okay, this is the same as this. Remember, even in this one, you can declare first, right? And then come down here and initialize. Okay, so you say array1 equals new string. So you can first declare, as we've done here, and then in the next line you initialize the array by telling it by specifying the number of boxes or number of slots available to the array. That's the number of items you can store in the array. So like I said, again, I'm going to keep repeating myself. For the dynamic array, when you initialize it, you still also need to initialize the dynamic array. Okay, so keep that in mind. After declaring the dynamic array, you need to initialize the dynamic array. Okay, the only difference is that for the dynamic array, when you are initializing, you do not need to specify. In fact, you do not specify the size of the array. Okay, the number of items it can hold. So I'm going to initialize it here. I'm going to say array1 is equal to new, and we're going to write list. We're going to repeat this again, this data type. Okay, this is going to be like our data type. Okay, just like the type that declares this. Okay, like the variable is of this type. Okay, so the whole thing, the list and the string together with the angle brackets, are going to be the type. Okay, so list string, and then we're not done yet. Because this is a class, you have to use the normal brackets at the end. Okay, this is like a constructor which initializes the list or the dynamic array or the list. Okay, and then don't forget your semicolon. So this is how you initialize a dynamic array. Okay, notice that, by the way, notice that we could have also done the same thing, the way we declare and initialize on the same line. You can actually do that. You can do the same thing here. You can say list string array1. This is the declaration, and then immediately you can initialize it on the same line, just like we do with the normal arrays. Okay, so by doing this, array1 is now the variable that references the dynamic array. Okay, so our dynamic array is stored inside array1, which means we can store as many strings as we like inside array1. Okay, remember, for the normal array, you can only store the number of items which you specified at the beginning when you initialize the array. For the dynamic array, you can store as many as you can. Okay, all right, we're going to see how to do that. So we're going to go to the next line. I'm going to show you how you can store items. Okay, so to store an item inside this array, at the beginning, right now, it has 0 cells. Okay, but the moment I do something like this, I say array1 dot, notice what we have. Look at all the methods we have available to us for this array. We have an add method, we have add range, as read only, binary search, capacity. So like I told you, this list is a class and is already created. I think the team behind .NET are the programmers that that created this list class. Okay, so when they created that list class, they created several useful methods which you can use. Okay, so you don't have to implement the methods yourself, they are already available to you. So for example, you want to add an item into this list, you just use the add method. Okay, and this is how you use it. You write the array1 dot add, and then you open a normal bracket because it's a method. Okay, you provide what you want to add as parameter to the add method. Okay, so for example, I want to add let's say my name. I'm going to put my first name. So don't forget, because the string is a literal string, it has to be delimited by quotes, double quotes. So I put in my first name, and we end it with a semicolon. Okay, so now at the moment, you see here, at this point, before we added this item, that's after we have initialized the array, the array1 has 0 cells. But the moment I add this string, this Mustafa string, immediately array1 now has 1 item. Okay, now because it has 1 item, it means you can now access array array1 square brackets 0. Okay, you can access sorry, you can access this. So I can say something like string say name equals array1 0, because okay, just give me a second. I have been interrupted. I'll be back. Okay, sorry about that. I was interrupted. Okay, so back. I think I was explaining. Uh, name equals. Oh yeah. Immediately after array1 dot add Mustafa. Immediately after this, array1 now has um, an item inside it, which means the cell 0 of array1. Remember, for arrays, it starts from cell 0 to cell 1 to cell 2. So the first item is going to be stored inside cell 0. So immediately after adding this, you can see that you can do this and it's going to run perfectly fine. You can take whatever is inside cell 0 and do something with it. Here I'm just taking it and storing it inside this name variable. Okay, so that's how you can add items. Notice I can keep adding items inside the array. I can say array1 dot add, and I can add another item, say Abdul. I can keep adding array1 dot add say Ahmed, and array1 dot add John. Okay, so you can keep adding as many items as long as the item you are adding is a string. Okay, notice that you declared it as as a list of string. Okay, you can only insert strings inside the array. Okay, of course you could, it doesn't have to be string. You can create another array and have it to be a list of, say, int, or list of floating point numbers. Okay, the thing is that whatever data type you specify is going to be the data type for the items of the array. Okay, let's see, what else can we okay, yeah, there's a little explanation I would like to notice. Right now I've added 1, 2, 3, 4. So it means that this array1 now has items from array 0 to array 3. Okay, array 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, in slot 0, this is what is stored. In slot 1, this is stored. In slot 2, this is stored. And in slot 3, this is stored. What happens if at this point in your program you try to access slot 4. So we say something like string name equals array array 1, and then use the square brackets to access slot 4. What happens if you do this? This is going to run into out of bounds exception. Okay, array out of bounds exception, just like the for the normal array. So even though this array this dynamic array allows you to add as many items as you want, you can still run into out of range exception. Okay, when you try to access when you try to access a slot that does not exist in the array. Okay, so here we're trying to say please array 1, give us whatever is stored inside slot 4 and store it inside name. But if you notice, there are only well, there are 4 slots, but there is slot 0, slot 1, slot 2, and slot 3. There is no slot 4. Okay, so because of that, it's going to run into out of range exception, and that will crash your program. So let's save all and try to run this and see what happens. Okay, you can see, yeah, it just started running, and then you can see system.argument out of range exception. Index was out of range. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So this is an example of the array that stores string. Let's take another example. We can create another list or another dynamic array and say it stores int. So this is going to be an array of integers. So let me call this array2 is equal to new list. Notice here we're also going to type int because that's the data type for here, unlike this one. Okay, and then we'll use the brackets for to initialize, and then here we can say array2 dot add, right? We can add 3, so we've stored number 3 inside slot 0. Array 2 dot add 5, array 2 dot add 4. Okay, so this is the add method. Okay, we've seen the add method. Notice that like I told you, there are so many methods in there in the list class. Okay, so let's try, and so here we have just added 3, 5, and 4. 3 is going to be in slot 0, 5 will be in slot 1, and 4 will be in slot 2. Notice that we can actually go ahead and remove an item from a slot. Okay, and when you do that, the array is going to automatically arrange itself. So you can see at the moment this is slot 0, slot 1, slot 2, right? If you remove this item from the list, this will now be slot 0 and this will be slot 1. Okay, let's try that and see. So let's say array2 dot remove. So usually the one you use if you want to remove from a particular slot, you use remove at. Okay, the remove at method is the one that allows you to remove from particular slots. Okay, if you want to remove a particular item, you have to know the item you want to remove. So for example, here it's just 5. For example, want to remove 5, you can do something like this. Array2 dot remove 5, which is going to remove this one. However, if you have let's see, if you have several 5s in there, so for example you have 3 here, 5 here, 4 here, you have another slot with another 5 down here, and you call this array2 dot remove 5, it's not going to remove all the 2 5s. Okay, it will only remove the first occurrence. That's why if you highlight it, read what it says. It says remove the first occurrence of a specific object from the list. Okay, so it will look for the first place, that's the earliest index that has that particular object stored in there. That's the one it's going to remove. It's not going to remove the next one. Okay, so that's not what we want to do here anyway. What we want to do is we want to remove at. Okay, so this one says it should remove at, and then the particular index we want. So remember, this is index 0, this is index 1, so we want to remove at index 1. Okay, now when we remove at index 1, this is what is going to happen. The array 2 is now going to have 3 stored inside slot 0 and 4 stored inside slot 1. We can test that and say by saying console.writeLine array 2, and then the slot we want is slot 0, so it should show us what is inside slot 0. We could maybe make it even better by writing it this way. So we'll just give some explanation. The item in slot 0 is, and we can use the curly brackets to output that variable. Okay, so it's going to say the item in slot 0 is, and then it will print out, it will type out the whatever number is stored inside slot 0, and we'll do the same for slot 1. Okay, so the item in slot 1 is, and we make it type out the item in slot 1. So I did this just to show you how remove at works. Okay, when it removes the item, it's going to shift this bottom item. Remember, at this point, this is slot 0, slot 1, slot 2. Okay, so the number 4 is supposed to be in slot 2, but because we removed this item, this 5, we removed that slot 1, it's now going to shift. This will be on slot 0, and this will be on slot 1, and this will be eliminated. Okay, so let's test run that and see. So you can see the item in slot 0 is 3, the item in slot 1 is 4. Okay, so that's exactly what I just explained to you. Okay, so that's how the remove at works. It's the same thing with the remove, well, not exactly the same, but like I explained earlier, the remove removes the first occurrence. So because we have only 1 5 here, so it's going to remove this one. Okay, so let's run that and see what happens. We should get exactly the same result. Okay, so let's see, is there any other? So we've seen the remove, we've seen the add method, we've seen the remove method, we've seen the remove at method. Is there any other method we might be interested in? We don't have time to go over all the methods, but there's so many methods, but you can go through them yourself, and I'm pretty sure most of them are going to make a lot of sense the moment you read the explanation. So if you highlight a particular method, it's going to like for this one, remove range, it will explain what it does. Removes a range of elements from the list, and you can see remove range takes 2 arguments. First, the index, that's from where you want to start removing, and then the count, the number of items you want to remove. Okay, so for the remove range, for example, what it's saying is you can remove. So for example, let's use this array 1. For example, we have Mustafa, Abdul, Othman, and John inside array 1. We can decide to remove from here to here. Okay, how we do that is we call remove range, and then we say from which index. So we're going to pass the first index as index 1 here. Remember, this is index 0, this is index 1, so it should start removing from index 1, and then the number of items it should remove is 1 2 3. So we're going to pass 1 comma 3. So this is what I mean. Array 1 dot remove range, and then we say remove starting from which index? 1. So it's going to start from here. It's going to start removing from here, and the number of items we want it to remove is 3. So sequentially from here, it's going to remove 1, 2, and 3. So when we run this, and if we run by the time we run this program now, it's going to remove this 1, 2, 3, and to ensure to make sure that it has removed these 3, we can try to print out all the items in the array. Okay, and if we try to do that, we will see that there is only this item. Okay, so let me just let's just clear this for now and work with this. So this is what I mean. We can make the array print out all the items in the array, so we can use a for each loop for that. For each, we'll say string s in or let's say name in array 1. Remember the for each loop, this is how you use it. So we're going to say name console.writeLine name, sorry, we don't need that, name. Okay, so this loop is going to make it is going to make console.writeLine. It's going to keep running console.writeLine name while name is switching from the first item in the array to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. But like I said, because we use this remove range, and we remove these 3 items, you would see that only Mustafa would show. So let's run this and see what happens. So you can see it's only Mustafa that's inside that array. Okay, by the way, if we remove this array 1.remove range, you can see that if we run it now, it's going to print out all the names: Mustafa, Abdul, Othman, and John. Okay, so that's to tell you that that is how the array 1.remove range works. Okay, I was just trying to show you how to read this explanation when you type. So what I mean is, if you type this array 1 dot, so all these methods, anyone you click on, if you highlight it, it gives you an explanation of what it does. So for this reverse, you can see reverses the order of the elements in the entire list. So for this one, when you call this reverse method, what is going to happen is the last item is going to be the first item, the second to the last is going to be the second item, the third to the last will be the third item, and the first item will be the last item. It's going to reverse the order. Okay, there are so many. There is sort, there's to array. Like I said, we don't have time to go through all the methods, but I'll show you some of the important ones. Capacity is quite I think important, because by the way, capacity and count should be very similar. Gets or sets the total number of elements the internal data structure can hold without resizing. Okay, I'm not sure capacity is the one we're interested in. I think count is the better one. It's better than capacity, because it seems like capacity is not what I thought it was. I thought count and capacity are the same, but it seems capacity is different. So for this one, for count just gets the number of elements contained in the list. Okay, so for example, you can see this array has 1, 2, 3, 4 items. So if we should say what is array 1 dot count, it will tell us that array 1 dot count is 4. For example, if we type console, so let's just remove this. If we say console dot write line array1 dot count. So by the way, array1 dot count returns an integer, and it's a property. Notice it's a property, so you do not use brackets like this. Okay, you do not use normal brackets after it. I know this counterintuitive if you're coming from Java. Java usually uses something like this. It uses accessor methods. It doesn't use properties, okay? But in C Sharp, we use properties. So the count is a property. So for properties, you do not use them as if they are methods. Okay, use them as if they are fields. So console.writeLine array1.count. If we run this, we expect to see 1, 2, 3, 4. We expect to see 4. Okay, so there we have it. So it's 4. So array1.count, the count property returns the number of items in the array. Notice if we decide to add another item in here, array1.add music, for example, you would see that the count is now going to return 5, and there we have it. Okay. So do not get yourself confused between array count and array index. Okay, the index refers to the particular slot. Okay, the address of the slot, the slot address of the item you're trying to access. So, for example, this Mustafa string is stored inside index 0. Okay, but the count of the array is the number of items in the array. So how many what's the array count for this one is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if I ask you what is the last index, or what's the last item in the array, what's its index, or the last index, notice is going to, you're going to start counting from 0. So it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the last index is 4, whereas the count is 5. Okay, so keep that in mind about arrays. It's just like the normal array where you have you start counting the index from 0. Okay, I think we've probably looked at most of the important things. Let me just check again and see among the methods if there's any other method I might have skipped. Aha, the clear method. Okay, so the clear method, what it does is, you can, instead of removing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, keep removing items. Suppose you have an array 1 and it's already populated, but you want to remove all the items. You can just use the clear method. Remember, it's a method, so you have to use the normal brackets, open and close. It doesn't take any parameter, so we're not going to put any parameter in there, and then your semicolon. Okay, so notice that if you have an array and it has some items inside, you can just use the clear method to remove all the items. So after calling this clear method now, this array 1 is now going to have no item whatsoever in it. Okay, so it's like it has no size. So if we write console.writeLine array1.count, you'll see that it returns 0. Let's test run that, and you'll see that it's 0. Okay, and if you try to print out all the items in this array now, you would see that it does not print out anything. Okay, it won't show anything because there's nothing inside the array at the moment, because we have called this clear method. Okay, so that's the clear method. Let me just check one more time if there's any other method that might be important. The find, I'm pretty sure the find is okay. The find is a bit complicated, so probably we should skip it. It's not suitable for beginners, because I think there's a use of a lambda expression there, or a delegate. So I'm just going to skip it. We haven't done delegates, we haven't done lambda expressions. Exists. I think this one is pretty straightforward. Oh, okay, it also has a predicate, so we might have to skip that. There's find the last index. Okay, I think we've probably, okay, the insert method. Just like the remove method, or just like the remove at method, you can use the insert method to slot in an item. Remember, when you do the array1.add, it adds it at the end of the list. But sometimes you might want to add, suppose you want to add, say, Eve in between Abdul and Othman. Okay, we want Eve to enter in between Abdul and Othman. So what you want to do is you want to use the insert method. The insert method allows you to do something like that. You do that by first you specify the index. Okay, let me just bring it up again. I want to show you how to read those. So if you highlight the insert, you can see inserts an element into the list, and you can see here int index, meaning the index where you want the item to appear. So since we want it to appear in between Abdul and Othman, we will want Eve to have index 0, 1, 2. We will want Eve to have index 2. So our parameter here for the index should be 2. And then the string is the item which you want to add, which is Eve. So let's go ahead and try that out. So we're going to say array1.insert, and then we open the normal bracket, close the normal bracket. In here, the first is the index. So the index is, like we said, we want 0, 1, 2. The index should be 2, and then use a comma to separate the arguments or the parameters. The second parameter is the item, and what we want to add is Eve. So we put Eve, and remember, because it's a string, you have to it has to be delimited by double quotes. Okay, so by doing this, if we save now and we try to write out okay, in fact, let's go ahead and use that our for loop for each loop and print out all the items in the array. Okay, for each string name in array1, we're going to say console dot write line name, and that should print out all the items in the array in the order in which they are entered. So we expect to see Mustafa, Abdul, Eve, and then Othman, and then John, and then music. The reason is because at this point, this is the order, okay? But after this array1.insert, you'll see that Eve enters in between Abdul and Othman. So let's run that and see. And there we have it. You can see Mustafa, Abdul, Eve, Othman, John, and music. Okay, so that's it about lists. Okay, we've seen how you can use the list to store strings. We've seen how you can use the list to store ints. We've seen some methods: the add, the remove at, I think add range. Okay, we saw remove range. The add range is very similar to remove range. Just instead of removing, what you're doing is you're adding. Okay, we've seen the insert, and okay. Before I end this lecture, I'll just like to show you another thing. Apart from the normal data type, so the examples I've given you is using the normal data types, right? Remember our car class, right? Remember our car class. I think the car class has some dependencies. Let's just go ahead and import that car class and all its dependencies. That's the engine, the steering. That was in the previous lesson that we did. So what I want us to do is we want to create a list, a dynamic array that can hold cars, okay? And then we create several cars and then store them inside, okay? So we'll go to project. Remember how to add existing item. Come to add existing item. So we now look for our, if we go to my apps folder in the, let me see if I can remember the name. I think it's car simulation. Yeah, inside here, inside the car simulation, we have car. Remember, we can't just add car alone. The reason is because car is dependent on, so if you open car, you'd see that it depends on the engine, steering, tire, door. You can see they are all highlighted in red now because they are dependencies of the car class, so we have to import the dependencies. Okay, so we go to project, add existing item, and I'm going to select all the other objects. Oh, sorry, not the program class, by the way. That's not a dependency of the car class. So we add, and after adding that's gone, so we can go back to our program class. And what I want us to do is first we would create a list that can hold car. Now this is how you do it. Inside the angle brackets, you just write your car. Okay, and that's it. You say car arrays, or we can call it garage, is equal to new list of car. By the way, we're not getting the compiler is not seeing the car class. The reason is because, remember, it's in a different namespace, so we have to make sure we use the namespace. So the namespace for the car is car simulation. So if we go to our program class, at the top we just see using car simulation and use our semicolon. So that should get rid of that red line. So you can see this is how we create. Now garage is a list, okay, and it can store cars. And what you can do is you can do something like this: garage dot add, and then inside the bracket you can just create a new car right away. Here you can say new car, okay, and that is going to be one car added into the garage. Okay, you can do it again. So what you can do, okay, let's just do this twice. Garage dot add, you can create another new car. So it's unfortunate that we didn't set up our car constructor. We didn't set it up such that we can create different variety of cars. It seems that all the cars we're going to create are going to be similar. Okay, they are similar doesn't mean they are the same object. Okay, they are different objects. It's just that they have similar properties, and yeah, they have similar properties. By the way, we don't have any distinct property, do we? Oh yeah, we do. The engine is going to be similar, the doors are going to be similar, the steering wheel is going to be, they're all going to be similar. So we didn't set our car constructor in such a way that we can pass it parameters and use those parameters to create different variety of cars. But nonetheless, I think it still proves our point. We still get to see the idea we're trying to pass across here. The idea is that you can have a garage that can store several cars. Okay, this car object and this car object are two different objects. Okay, of course they are similar, but they are different. We can add more items by this is what I wanted to show you. So we can say for, we can use a loop here. Int k equals 0, k is less than 98. Remember, we already have two items in there. So what I want to do is I want to add 98 items. That's 98 cars, so that we have a total of 100 cars inside garage dynamic array. Okay, k is less than 98, k plus plus, and then we open here. Oh, sorry about that. Here we open here, and we can say garage dot add new car. And by doing this, what we've done is we are adding 98 different cars. They are all similar, by the way, but they are different objects. So by adding 98, already we had 2 there, so making a total of 100 cars inside this garage dynamic array. Okay, I know people are going to be like, oh, how do we know there are 100 cars in there? There's not much we haven't really done anything with graphics. If you are like myself, you're eager to see some graphics, you're eager to see some cars, you're eager to see some aeroplanes, some dragons, some birds. We are going to look at that when we start doing when we start covering uh, Windows Forms applications. Okay, right now what we're just doing right now, all the lessons we've been covering, we're just seeing the basics of C sharp. Okay, we're just going over the basics of C sharp. These are the rudimental ingredients that you need when you start creating those games that you would like to create, or applications, or useful applications that can help you in doing your day-to-day jobs. Okay, so just bear with me. The only thing we can do here to probably show us that there are up to 100 cars in there, we can say console dot write line. We type out the number of items in garage, so we say garage dot count. And remember, the count is a property, not a method, so we're not using the brackets, and we use semicolon. And when we run this, we should see the number of items inside garage, and there we have it. You can see 100 there. Okay, that is coming after the initial program we wrote, where we wrote these items here, and there's 100. Okay. Okay, I think this should wrap up. Should I say the end of beginner to okay? Bear with me. I'll still do just one last class. I think I would like to look at randomization, or random numbers. I'll treat them in the next lesson, and after the next lesson, that would conclude our beginner tutorial, and we should start looking at um, uh, Windows apps, Windows application, or Windows Forms applications. Okay, and that is where the real fun is, where we can now start using all the things we've learned in this tutorial, in this C Sharp beginner series. We're going to use everything we've learned, and we're going to be creating some amazing graphics, some cool games, and hopefully some useful applications. Okay, so I'll see you in the next lesson.